Folks, welcome inside the studio. Was it Black Key Studio? What's the name of it?
Rusty Key.
Rusty Key Studios and
the Snake Pit.
We are joined today by a legendary human being and a pretty good musician in his own right, Larry Vann. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hey Jake, thank you for having me, man.
It's good to see you, my brother.
Good to see you too.
I just want you to, the audience may not know this or not, but you got hooked up with Don Cornelius, and you were singing for Don Cornelius. And I was hoping you could sing a little bit for the audience, because most people know Larry Vann as a trap drummer, but you're a singer too, so we'd like to see those pipes.
Well, I did some singing in the band with the Whispers. I didn't get a chance to do anything on record with Soul Train Records, but in the live band that backed up the Whispers, which became the recording band, the studio band for Soul Train Records. But we were just cutting tracks and stuff. So I didn't get a chance. Don heard me sing on the live shows, but never did get a chance to record me singing.
Well, of course, but can we hear your voice?
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
What do you want to sing, man?
We can do
any audience recommendations? Throw it out there.
Well, we can do something like. Now, when the night has come
and the land
is dark, and the moon is the only light we see. No, I won't be afraid, no. I won't shed a tear just as long as you stand by me. Darling, darling, stand by me. Whoa, whoa. Stand by me. Oh, darling. I need you to stand by me. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Like, can you talk about some of the... Howlin' Wolf and those cats were brought in from Chicago. They came in from Chicago to play the Fillmore and places like that. Were there blues guys in the Bay Area or drummers that were singers that you looked up to when you were...
yeah.
Can you talk about who them... I know like Herschel Davis, but he was more your peer. Was a singer and played drums. But were there other cats that did that you got off on?
Oh, man, I can't think of his name now. I want to say...
People want to see your face, Larry. We got to see you. We got to.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you are.
I'm trying to think. I was singing drummer back when I came on the scene. One of the legends. Layman Scott. Those are the
Layman Scott. Where is
Layman Scott? He was with Johnny Talbot. He was like one of the cats.
And he was singing and playing.
No, he wasn't a singer. But I'm just thinking about drummers back then. He's on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of his name.
Let me ask you something. It'll come to you, but because when I saw you live in San Carlos.
Mm-hmm. San Ramon.
San Ramon, at a great joint there with
Clementine.
You guys were cooking, man, and you made, like some of those blues tunes seem simple to sing and play drums, but it's not. You make it look simple. That's the art of genius, because it's not easy to sing and play drums. How did you learn to get comfortable doing it?
I don't know, man. Well, in my first band, second band, the bass player, Bernard Williams, always wanted me to sing. And I would always say, man, I don't feel it. I don't want to sing that song, man. We lived around the corner from each other. So he'd be working on something, and he would call me, Larry, come around here, man. You got to sing this song. You got to sing this song. And I said, man, I don't want to sing that song, man. And he wouldn't leave me alone until I went around there and sang the damn song. So that was one of the things I sang in school. I sang in the school chorus. I sang at church, in the youth choir. But it was something that was cool to do. But I just never saw myself as a singing drummer. But one of the things I guess that kind of turned me around was we have up here in a lot of school systems they have once a year in junior high and high school a day they call Career Day, and it's for the students who have an idea of what they want to do in life, what they're interested in. It may be in the medical field, it may be in
somehow they're supposed to know what they're supposed to do with the rest of their life.
Yeah.
But these are opportunities for careers.
Right.
Yeah, I get it.
So mine was music, so we went to this music studio that Miss Unruh, I think was her name, down by Lake Merritt. And matter of fact, down by the Grand Lake Theater. She had a studio down there. She was like a vocal coach, and I think she taught piano. So a lot of us, and this is a citywide thing that went on. And we met with her in her studio, and she talked to us about, she interviewed each of us and asked us what instrument we played and, what is our goals and all that. And when she got to me, I told her I'm a drummer and I do sing. And she said, oh, she got real excited, man. And that's the first person I ever talked to that got that excited about a singing drummer. And she said, oh, you play drums and you sing too? I think that's wonderful. I love a singing drummer. And I had never heard anybody ever say that to me, I'm saying, wow, that's deep. And I never forgot that. So I would fight with Bernard all the time, but I would end up singing. So really, that's when it really started for me in that second band, when I really started singing.
And what was the name of that band?
That was... we were D Emeralds, and then we changed our name later on to the Shades of Soul.
The Shades of Soul.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted you to talk to the audience about, you were very close with, cats would come into the Continental, like, there would be clubs in Oakland, like Curtis Mayfield's band would come in, and you got to know those guys real good, the accompanists.
Mm-hmm.
How important were they to... and you can reflect this to yourself with Marvin Holmes. How important were those rhythm cats as it related to shaping the grooves of what turned out to be these amazing hits?
These cats, Curtis Mayfield's group was one of, they were not only great guys, and we were young guys up under them, and they took us in like we were their brothers. And
how old were you? 16, 17 years old?
I was about 18.
Wow.
And the bass player's name was Lenny. The drummer's name was, I think, Billy. I don't remember their last name. But these cats, when we first worked with them, we worked with them in Sacramento. We opened up for them. And it was just like, these cats played the grooves right. The drummer, like, boom, boom, boom. That I've Been Trying song with the mallets. He would work the mallets, and it's like, oh, man. It was just beautiful the way he worked it. These cats played live, played this stuff right. They had a bass player, drummer, and 2 horns. That made up the band. Alto and trumpet. The chord instrument didn't come into play until Curtis came on stage. When Curtis came on stage, he was playing his guitar. That's when the chord would start.
Those cats would open up.
They would open up
Trumpet,
and do a complete set without a piano or guitar.
Mind blowing.
And you wouldn't miss anything. Those are the first cats I saw do that. And it like blew me away. And when Curtis and him came on, it was like a build up from what the band had already done to the stars of the show. And it's like it went to a whole nother level musically. It was amazing to see these cats and to see them work.
And they treated you great too. I mean,
really, really nice cats, man. We hung out in Sacramento for the, to do those 2 nights with them. We did a Friday and we did Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Big club. I cannot remember the name of the club. It was a club that used to be like a shopping market, which they turned into this big club, and down in Sacramento. And it was during the summertime, so it was hot, and we'd be by the pool, and those cats would come down and hang out. And I noticed something then that I learned later about Curtis. Curtis would come. The only time Curtis came out, he wanted his manager to go to the store and get some writing paper for him. But he was always somewhere, and obviously he was writing and creating all the time in his room, you know what I mean? The other guys would be hanging out and chilling and stuff. Curtis was always, you could tell Curtis was like a workaholic.
Well, he was also probably the most prepared cat around, everywhere he went. But he was pouring out creative, original music.
All the time, man. He was just an incredible guy. So, being with those guys was really something, man. I learned so much from them.
Well, how did you find out about what happened when they perished? How'd that all work out?
Well, it came out in a magazine back in the '60s called Boss Soul.
Boss Soul.
Boss Soul.
Yeah, because I mean, there was it wasn't like you were going to be able to. The local news wasn't going to pick up on that.
No. If they did, I didn't hear it. But Boss Soul newspaper spoke about it, and it just blew me away, man. It just blew us all away because those cats were so cool. And for that to happen, it's like, wow, man. I won't be able to see these cats come through no more, Well, I won't be able to hang out with them because we would hang out with them.
Well, and that's the community. That's how music is made. It comes out of the community. And even if they weren't living here, when you were with them playing, they fostered that camaraderie to give you guys a little incentive to say, I'm going to keep up in my game too, to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking to a legendary cat, Larry Vann, and I want, a couple months ago, a dear friend of mine, Oliver Ray, he had a track that he played for me in Tucson, and I gave him some suggestion. I thought it needed a bridge, which never happened, but I said, it's clear that there's an electronic drum beat on this track. And it was I want you to go into it in detail, but it was not a very complicated track, but it had a sterile feeling to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, if you're going up to Oakland, maybe I didn't really even think of you at first, but I didn't think of anybody. I was like, maybe I can connect with one of the cats up there to solve this deal. And so I was, talking to him about how much, the money they had to pay you and whatnot. And eventually I said, well, I think Larry Vann's going to be the man. And Oliver went up there, and I want you to take it from there because it's one of the things on my journey that I'm most proud of is connecting cats that to make music and make love. But it's not always. I want you to take us through the process and how mentally exhausting it was. Because when you called me that day, I was loving the energy that was coming out of you, but you were exhausted.
Well, studio work, man, it mentally drains you. Being in the studio all day is really draining, man, because you're concentrating for 5, maybe 10 minutes, maybe even long, especially like it was a long playing disco album or something. You got to hold that groove, and you got to make the moves within the arrangement, be it, like you're doing, you might, the intro might be, and you got to hold that.
Right.
Right? And then you might have a turnaround. It might go somewhere else. And then you got to go back to... And it's got to be... The time has got to be there. And the transition, the time has got to be there. It's got to be even. And you got to feel with the other guys, the bass player, the guitar player. And they may have... A lot of times... You'll do just the rhythm tracks. So it'll just be the piano guitar, bass, and drums. Then they'll stack the horns. They'll put the horns on.
They'll layer that on top.
They'll layer the horns, and if they're gonna have strings and all that. So the foundation has to be solid. Whatever you're gonna play, you know, and it's got to happen, man, throughout the song.
No matter how complex the rhythm is or not. So I mean, can you take us through that day with Oliver when you arrived at the studio?
When I arrived at the studio, like, you know, he I'm trying to think, did he send me something? I don't think he sent me anything. So he said, yeah, man, this tune, you know, it's you know, the groove was pretty simple. I just put down you know, a drum pattern, a mechanical drum pattern, and but I want the live feel, so I want you to listen to it. So I started listening to it. So I came up with a pattern, almost like a second line kind of groove at first. To fit with what he had.
Right.
And I think I did maybe, that's my little groove called the open scratch groove, I call it. I tried to do something like that. That didn't work.
These are trademark grooves, not working for this tune.
No, it's not working. So
I also want to be clear, just without mentioning names, I don't even know the cat, but the engineer was a younger
Dave, guy named Dave.
and he was a lot more uptight. And I know Oliver at one point.
Well, I didn't know what he was.
No, all I know
He
is
was just cool. He wasn't saying much. He was just going, you know, Oliver would go in there and talk to him, and that was it, because I was concentrating on what was going to work. But it's one of them kind of songs where, and you know, it's usually par for the course. As a drummer, you gotta find something to that's locked down, that's locking in.
Absolutely.
Be it the bass player, the bass player playing, which would be the ultimate. That's the main thing you focus on as a drummer. But it was something going on, and I can't remember now. I have to hear the track again.
Right, we'd have to pull it up. But it
to
was
tell you exactly what that thing was I sat on. Because the track has already been laid, so I have to play to that track and to the click and whatever else they got in there. So I had to find something in that track that was locking for me to lock with. And when I found it, and I realized, okay, man, I can't remember exactly what the pattern was.
No.
It was something, I don't know if it was like that or a pattern like that. This ain't working, man. No, we don't want that. We don't want that.
You don't worry about it. The point is you locked in.
Right. And I was able to, you know, do the transition. There was transitions within the song, and I found the pocket, because it was, you know his music, but it had a pocket, and I was able to latch on to it and do my thing to it. But it was challenging.
Well, no, because you said to me on the phone, you said, man, it almost didn't happen.
Right, yeah.
And I want you to talk about the nuances, the mental focus. Once you kind of sense that the ship is sort of out at sea and it might not come back.
Right.
And you want to seal the deal because that's your gig and that's
right,
what you want to do.
I want to satisfy the client.
You want to satisfy, keep the customer satisfied.
Right,
You know,
and
what, not even that particular session, but what are the intangible things to keep yourself mentally focused to eventually find that pocket and not just throw in the towel? Because I will tell you that engineer, very early on, being younger and more insecure, was like, this isn't working. Mm-hmm. And Oliver went to him and said, hey man, give it a chance, let it breathe a little bit, let it go. So it's easy to pull that plug, but when that plug is still in and it's not, then all of a sudden you're starting to feel, is this actually going to happen?
Because he asked me, he said, Larry, let me ask you, how long can you hang out? I said, man, we gonna hang out until I get there.
Okay, there you go. You just answered that question.
Get this, unless you guys got something else going on, somebody else coming through here. I said, we gonna get it. You got me all jacked up now. I can't even leave.
Right, you couldn't walk out of there without sealing the deal.
No, I gotta finish this one way or the other. So, but yeah, there was a point, and that it came to that point. But when he asked me that, so I'm saying, okay, we gotta figure. It could be the simplest thing too. That's why you never, over the years of playing in the studio, you don't never go on. You know, I'm on my way to the studio. I get a phone call. Hey man, where you going? I'm going to the studio, man. Yeah, I'm only gonna be there for a few hours. You don't never say that.
Why?
Because you never know what you may be getting ready to get into. That's gonna have you wound up in this project.
Well, especially if you're not able to cut it, you're not going to want to walk out of there without it being done. So
right,
it could take a long.
No, but I'm just saying, I've been in the studio where I have been in sessions where we had to let it. Sometimes you have to let it go.
You got to. Can you talk about a time when you just had to cut it? When someone said this is, and even the musicians won't be the best judge of that. It has to normally come from the producer or somebody else, to say, listen, we'll just hit it. We'll start it again tomorrow.
I did that with Merle Saunders.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. We were recording down in Monterey, and Gail Maldron was with us then. Gail was from the Larry Graham Band. She played guitar and sang.
Wow.
She's like,
Filthy.
Imagine Chaka Khan that could play guitar. So, and we were working on, it was Merle's project.
Was it a direct-to-disc thing?
No. Before direct-to-disc.
Yeah.
And we were down there working, and I can't even remember the song. But man, we had done tracks earlier.
Right.
And we were on this particular song.
You got to snag on
that. Yeah, and we just kept running tracks, and sometimes you hit that wall and you got to know it's time to stop. We'll come back to this tomorrow. We'll hit this first thing in the morning. And this was one of those times. So yeah, I have been in sessions like that where, you hitting it and something ain't happening. It ain't happening. And then you come back the next day and you hit it.
It's just
you just got a fresh new start.
You got to, and actually you can walk out of the studio at that point and say, well, we did get 4 songs in the can, so
right.
It wasn't a total waste.
Right.
The Oliver situation was that it was just one tune.
One song. So it was like, okay, now this is turning into a science project for me. Damn.
Dude, we are going to the Oscars.
Yeah.
Grammys. There's a record up there I put up there on the top. It's Marvin Holmes and Justice.
Oh, yeah.
The summer of 73.
Yeah, summer of 73.
You want to talk? I mean, Marvin and I have really gone around and around about doing an interview. He kind of, lukewarm about it to a degree, and, things kind of fell apart. But that being said, can you talk about that hit that we were talking about off air that you made with him around Christmas time, and then what ultimately why it didn't have the legs to keep going?
The song was not on this album.
No, it was 68 or it was like in 68 or 69.
No, this was 70. This was.
What was the name of the tune?
Find Yourself.
Find Yourself.
And it was on Kimberly Records. Kimberly Records was the label. And, man, we went in the studio, we went into Wally Hyder's early one morning. And we had been practicing the tune, Marvin arranging it, putting it together with horns. And we had a big horn section then, had about 3 horns. Had trumpet, tenor, and Barry.
That's a big front line of horns.
Oh man, it's funky too. So we cut it, and it's part 1 and part 2.
Find Yourself part 1, Find Yourself part 2.
Right.
And this stuff's up on YouTube for people to find it, right? I mean,
oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. But man, we knew we had something. the engineer was off the hook. Marvin, mixed it with the engineer, and he laid it out, and it's just a classic. It's a total classic. And the second side, to me, is just first and second side just come together so well, because it opens up with the second side with Marvin doing this incredible, like atonal kind of stuff against the funk.
Oh.
It's just
vocally
with
or
wow.
with a guitar.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's filthy.
And it's an underground classic now.
So then, but this is so fascinating because the same thing happened to Brian Jackson and Gil Scott-Heron, and Brian Jackson will be tuning into this interview. But he, with the bottle Strata East, they didn't they couldn't keep up with the demand.
Yeah.
So what happened? Well, what happened? I mean, so Kimberly, they just pressed a couple of singles, or the LP came out and
it wasn't an LP. It was just a single. And
it was getting radio play.
It was getting radio play. Matter of fact, during the holidays, people were coming into the store. They put it in the stores, and they sold out. And they didn't have. People were still coming in, and they didn't have any backup. They just didn't press up enough. Not knowing it was going to take off the way it took off. So, when that happens, it can die. Because, let's say you kick it off here in the Bay Area. So, you distribute to whatever, how many stores. And that lets you know what can happen.
Right.
So, let's say if we had enough to cover the demand, that the record companies will look at that. Hey, this thing's taking off. Let's run it into this region, or let's run it down south. But you couldn't even say anything because it died.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is if it had this huge, it was regional radio play, or did it actually spread? Maybe it spread out to other parts.
I don't know how far it spread out.
Right.
But I know right here in the Bay Area.
In the summer of '70s. So, I mean, what kind of toll did that take on the band, if anything? I mean, what does that do to a band? What does that do to a leader of a band, or just a band in general, when you're getting momentum and then all of a sudden, because of something that in today's world would seem absolutely insane not to be able to create or supply? I mean, you can press stuff, by the millions today. So that's not an issue. Back then, do you remember how you guys felt as a band?
Well, we felt like any other band, like being dropped from a record label, and you put out a good product, or being on a label where they put you aside to promote another artist on the label. You just keep going, and you use what you got to get on down the road, and you learn from. You realize, like, hey man, we won't do this again, or if I see this and they start talking like this, I'm gonna put them in check. I'm not gonna fall for it. You live and you learn, and you just keep going. Thank God for the experience. Because you learn from it and you grow from it.
How did you connect with Brown Door? What was Brown Door Records?
Brown Door Records was Marvin's idea. We were all part of Brown Door. Because what we did, not very many people were doing what we did.
Explain.
Everybody, we all were a part of Brown Door Records. We put the music together, we wrote together, and we got investors to invest in the product and make it happen. We had radio people in Oakland that were supporting us at KDIA, KSOL. And we basically were a company, and we all had jobs to do with putting the project together and promoting it. I did distributing.
You did distribute. You were running crates of records around.
I was doing distribution in the stores in the area, getting distribution.
How many pressings of that was even cut?
I can't remember how many copies. I don't know. It may have been 1,000.
You guys were still cooking. Were you? How was it different from Sly or any of the other bands? What was different about the Justice Band?
Well, we were all part of it. Not that Sly's group wasn't, but when you hear Sly talk, or anybody talk about it, Sly was the ultimate leader
Right.
and creator. And we were all a part of, we were all part of the writing. And not that members in Sly's band weren't, but all you pretty much heard was about Sly. It was Sly's creation. They were doing what Sly was hearing and arranging, doing how Sly arranged everything. Sly was he's just a monster of an arranger.
I was talking to Greg
leader.
Rico about it. I mean, the guy was the first one to implement what at the time was an archaic drum track, but he did that, and he was really on it. He was on top
He
of
was
it.
really on it, man. The cat, he was like, he's the one that produced and arranged and recorded The Swim by Bobby Freeman. That's him playing that guitar on there. The cat, he's our hero, man. He still is my hero.
Yeah.
He did so much around here, man. When I first knew anything about Sly, he was on the radio. And you know what Sly would do, man?
He played piano?
He would be playing piano on the air. And I said, this cat was trying out his ideas to the public back then. He would be on the radio doing his show and playing the piano on the air, playing grooves and playing original stuff.
And singing vocals, too.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, man. So
Was it
he
like a-
was
like a-
trying
like-
stuff out.
He had like an acoustic piano or like an electric
Acoustic, yeah.
Unbelievable. That,
Monster.
that was my question is about, in your, like with Merle, for instance, you guys would really work things out on the bandstand and then be able to go in the studio, and it came across as it sounding like a live show.
Mm-hmm.
That experience, it just had the idea that you had so many opportunities to play live.
Not only play live, and we rehearsed a lot too.
You
We
did?
rehearsed. Yeah, Merle had a big house on 17th Avenue out there, right by Golden Gate Park. Beautiful home. He had a big basement, and he turned it into a studio and rehearsal place. But we rehearsed, just like with Marvin. We rehearsed and understood the motif of the song. Merle was kind of like Miles. He was kind of like Miles in a lot of ways.
Was he like a kind of a mind game?
No, he didn't do that.
Because a lot of
not
people
like that.
Yeah, because Miles would
I'm talking about artistically.
Explain.
Okay, like we would learn the motifs and then go on the bandstand and he just let us play.
How liberating is that?
He would want you to play. So you have the motif idea, you know what you got to do, but then he wanted us to explore. Because we would play, we were playing the Deadheads.
That's right. The Deadheads were coming to Merle
Yeah.
Saunders and Martine Fierro, Chris Hayes,
Yeah.
Larry Vann. But
Tony Saunders.
that was the fan base.
And anything
Tony?
we do, they would dance to it. They'd be out there on the, you had them spinners out there, the girls spinners with them big skirts on, spinning.
Boogie on Reggae Woman.
Man, all that stuff. So Merle wanted us. My plan really opened up playing with Merle. When I was in Oakland, man, it's like I was in military school.
Really?
Yeah.
Marvin, those guys would work stuff out, and you'd have to play. It was more than motifs. It was totally ranged out, and you had.
Yeah, and the thing in Oakland was play the pocket. Don't veer from the pocket. They didn't want none of that.
Didn't it?
They drove it in my head. Play the groove. Stay with the pocket.
No fills.
So, yeah. If you do something, do something. Stay with the groove. So it was almost like military, which was great for me, because I got the foundational stuff. So when I got to Merle, play everything. Play in the kitchen sink. I opened up, so it was like it was beautiful because I got the foundational stuff that I needed. Stay in the pocket. Then when I got with Merle, it was like better. But keeping in mind still focusing on the groove. The pocket still got to be there.
Right. Well, I mean,
you got to be playing the groove and still putting it down. Because I got that training in Oakland. Play the pocket. Stay in the groove. The drummer's main job is keeping the time. Forget about roll. Don't even worry about the roll. If you're a good timekeeper, you'll always work. You'll always have a job. And you know how to feed and be able to push the band, move the band. You know, when the groove, cat's playing a solo, you know how to put the heat up under him. But play the time. Keep the time. The time is what the cats want. You play with a band with horns up front, you back there playing the time, the cats will turn around smiling. Because that's what they want. They want something they can depend on. They want somebody back there that's keeping the time. Just keeping the time. So if you got good time as a drummer, you'll always work. And you know how to feed, you know how to put that heat up under them, you always work. And play dynamically.
You're always working, but you may not be getting off on the work. It would be a gig, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it depends. Depends on how good you are, too.
Yeah, but how much
what level of work you're going to get.
Well, I dig. I mean, did you, I did a Facebook Live interview with Kenny Barron back in January, the great piano player, and I don't know what my question was, but he went off on this idea that in a live setting, all he's trying to do is touch people's hearts. Mm-hmm. And I want Larry Vann to talk about, you're a leader of bands now. There's not a robust touring circuit. You're not traveling the country the way you maybe once did with Bill Rich and the Whispers and people like that. Mm-hmm. But I just want you to talk about the emotional approach that you have. Assuming you're in a good state of mind, what is your intention on the bandstand as it relates to the audience and touching hearts? Can you just talk about that?
Mm-hmm. My thing is coming up with the grooves and putting it out there to the people, and then they responding back to me. And I enjoy looking out and seeing people dancing to my groove, man. That's ain't nothing better than that. And they keeping time. I mean, I do some gigs with some bands around here that play for swing dancers. And
not shake dancers, swing dancers.
Swing dancers.
Swing dancers.
And Lindy Hop and doing all that kind of stuff. And man, I'm saying, man, they dancing to my groove. They dancing to the beat I'm putting down, and they out there doing their thing. But it's the ultimate is for me. I mean, because sometimes I leave the house, I don't feel like going, man. I'm being very honest with you. I love to play.
Well, you're speaking the truth. I mean,
sometimes I don't feel like going, but when I get there and set up and we hit it, and the people out on the dance floor after the gig, it's like, man, I'm glad I came, because I want people to be happy with what I'm doing. I want to see the people out there dancing on the floor and being happy, and that the music we're giving them is bringing joy to them. They come up and tell you, and it ain't nothing better than that. When somebody, we really enjoyed you tonight. You guys were so good. It's like, hey man, I appreciate that. That lets me know I'm doing my job. If one person, just one person comes up and tells me that, I know I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied, because everybody I play with, the cats you came and heard me play with, they all about giving over 2,000% every time they come out there.
Dude,
I know I got to do that. No matter who I play with, I'm going to have to give 2,000%. If ever I get to that point where I feel I really can't do that, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it, because it's not fair to the band. It's not fair to me. If I, God forbid, I lose what little I got, I'm going to have to back up, because it's not fair to the people that paid the money to come in to hear the music, and it's not fair to the band either. So I thank God that he still gives me that energy.
Absolutely, brother.
To go out and still make music and create the grooves. whatever they may be.
Did you Don Barksdale? He had a club in Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about
2 clubs?
Because we got the great NBA center Joe Barry Carroll tuning in right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to ask you about the multi-entertainment. How much athletes and sports stars were involved in cultivating the music? Sugar Ray Robinson had a jazz club in Harlem. And juxtapose that to today. Do you see other types, not musicians, but other types of entertainers, actors, or athletes becoming part of that culture that makes up the community music? Or Barksdale had his own club.
Had two successful clubs, the Sportsman and the Showcase. This is where I cut my teeth at the Sportsman. I also played the Showcase, but the Sportsman was the creme de la creme in the 60s. You know, this was the happening place. We had top local acts like Fred Hughes,
Freddie Hughes, that's great.
Johnny Talbert, Marvin Holmes and the Uptights,
John Turk,
John Turk, Eugene Blacknell and the New Breed, Johnny Hartzman, all these great acts. Eddie Foster, Sisters 3, Faye Carroll. We had all these great acts. This was the local talent. And to me, I feel like I was in Black Hollywood. Because when you would see these cats, we know their reputation.
Right.
When you see them out in the community, they look like stars. They dress, they never were. You never seen these cats, down and out. They were like, oh man, there go Johnny Talbert. Man, I saw Johnny Talbert today. So these two clubs, not only had the great
local talent, yeah,
but they were bringing in the national acts like the Impressions,
Temptations.
The Temptations didn't play there, but Lou Rawls, Ike and Tina Turner, Bobby Bland,
R&B and blues.
B.B. King.
Wow.
We had, Red Fox.
And would a lot of those cats come in and hire cats like yourself to be the rhythm section?
Yeah, they would do that. Back then when we played the bigger shows, like with the Temptations and Aretha Franklin and at the Oakland Auditorium Arena and stuff, those kind of gigs. At a point, it was kind of like the cats would come out of L.A., the promoters, and bring the shows up. And they would always bring their own contracted bands, big horn sections, and like the Temps would have their rhythm section, but they would contract the big horn section. But for a long time, they would bring guys up from L.A. instead of using the guys here. And that didn't really change from what I can remember, from what I saw, till maybe the 70s. But it was still happening. We were on the shows. The local acts was on the shows, but they didn't contract out of here, out of this area, for horns and stuff.
Did a lot of would cats like Wilt Chamberlain come in because it was run by Barksdale? I mean, did you see a lot of athletes that would come in and pay homage to the music as well?
Yeah.
That must have been
Nate Thurman.
I love this stuff. A bunch of Raiders. The Raiders used to love
Raiders. What's his name? I can't think of his name right now. It'll come to me. But a lot of Raider cats would be on the scene. It was like, then, man, the community was like really. This was dealing in the '60s too, and all the turbulence that was going on. We were really united.
Right. So it was so overt.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was like, man, we had a circuit. There was a black circuit, man. A chitlin circuit, they called it. All over the nation. Down south, Midwest, New York City, Chicago. So we were really more united then. Because, like I just shared with you, Don Barksdale's club, the Sportsman Showcase, that was part of that black circuit here in the Bay, out in California. So, yeah, we were we would be on the same stage with the Impressions and Major Lands and Jerry Butler. Those cats played the rooms too. So there was a lot of unity then, man, because especially if you got on the Tritland circuit, we were all on the circuit. May have been at different levels, depending on Impressions, Jerry Butler, I Continue to
Right. I mean, but were you,
the ballads, local acts. But it was more united because really you knew back in the 60s, they wasn't letting us in them white hotels. So it was black hotels and we all stayed in the same place. So there was more unity.
Yeah,
which was cool.
The Booker T. Washingtons, you weren't going to you weren't allowed to go to the Hyatts,
No.
and that kind of stuff.
So there were black hotels that they knew would they could rent rooms to, and they would cook and do the whole nine.
Did you
yards.
wind up sometimes in the South staying with families too?
Yeah, I did. I went and lived with my grandmother.
Not even your family. I'm saying like on tour that families would house you guys.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, that first tour. It wasn't families. It was some chicks we met who had families. But it was really cool. I mean, they really were a blessing in a whole bunch of ways. You know what I mean? They fed us, and we were able to, kick them down something, but we had places to stay.
What is God blesses you to keep the rhythm going. What has been an inspiring thing for you that gives you hope that the cyclical nature of music and the evolving history of music will continue on for as long as we know?
Hey man, it's always been here, and it just keeps growing, just keeps happening. It'll always be here. We will always have music, thank God. So music has been here since what? Back to the
I'm just saying that I was talking to Greg Orico from Sly Stone, and he's talking about that universal, how powerful those rhythms were in the motherland, communicating a spiritual ceremony. Mm-hmm. Or your friends here, or you need to come home. I mean, or it was that was more powerful than the voice.
Right.
So the rhythm is there. Can you point to something that has inspired you this year musically, either in your own life or what you witnessed that gave you, that just, obviously you didn't doubt it, that it would go on, but it was just, it really was just gave you, it opened your heart. As far as except for Jake Feinberg coming to track you down and those kinds of things. I mean, I'm talking more like a musical experience, especially with a younger generation. Something you might have witnessed that they gave you, said, "Hey, the tenants are still there, the embers are still there."
Well, what the kids are doing now.
People want to see your face.
Oh, the kids want hey, what the kids are doing now. I like a lot of it. But
what do you dig about it? Well, tell me about it.
Well, there's songs that reflect hope in how it's put together. These kids got their own new thing too, but they do pay homage to James Brown, to the root stuff, and I like that.
In terms of the syncopation, or in terms of the lyrics, or
in terms of the groove. The groove, and the older rappers really set the foundation.
Those dudes were in. Can you break down? This would really be helpful for someone like myself. The difference, what you hear now is there's hip hop and rap.
Mm-hmm.
Is it an intellectual thing? What is the difference there?
It's intellectual too, because it's been broken down into so many different areas now.
Subgenres, right.
Looking at what Russell Simmons did with
Def Jam?
Yeah, well, before Def Jam, because he had, I guess that was his label the whole time. Run DMC, his Brothers Group. what's my man's name that did These Are the Breaks? Sugar Hill Gang. That early stuff, they were using the tracks, they were using all kind of grooves, man, and they were serious about what they were doing, man. And those grooves, they used the real deal grooves to create a whole new genre, and that was amazing, totally amazing. Chuck D, I met Chuck. I hung out with Chuck in France at a big music conference. I love what he did. He did a special on kind of chasing, going to the foundation. They went to Chess Records and just really kind of focused in on what happened at Chess Records and applying that into what they were doing, where the whole groove came from.
I dig.
Was the blues. Chuck D is an incredible little dude. I really dig him. He smart cat.
Someone just said sampling today is not what the old school hip hoppers were doing.
But they were sampling, but what they were sampling was disc. They were going right to the LPs. You know, and I think out of all the cats, James Brown was sampled the most. The king. You know, they were sampling the heck out of James Brown stuff. You know, so it's amazing what they're doing, man. And these kids got a whole new twist on it, but they keep coming back to the groove.
Even if that groove is a machine groove.
Even if it's a machine groove, they coming up with grooves that are making people want to move.
I would push back a little bit and say maybe more so in rap or hip hop than R&B, but I don't hear the uplifting stuff. I hear a lot of truth in and sort of maybe not the cats directly, but they see their people in despair. Mm-hmm. And so it's not negativity, it's just there's a lot of anger.
Oh yeah.
And Curtis Mayfield's talking about color, creed. I mean, the guy was riffing like crazy about we're all one people.
Right.
Marvin Gaye, Willie Hutch, the list goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm. It's
the rage is real, man, and and I guess all I'm saying is how does it does boil over, and we see that going on all the time. But what would you say to younger cats about messaging so that their songs have depth, but they're not alienating people based on anger or rage?
You know, it's kind of interesting because you never know how you're going to be inspired to write something. And to, it goes back to that freedom of speech. And you got to stick to, that's always there. That's the law, freedom of speech. So I would, I could say, why don't you write more about the flowers in the sky? But that I'm dictating to your creativeness.
Sure.
And you gotta, that's gotta be free, man. So
yeah, you don't want to clamp down on that.
No. So, but I would, if they came to me and asked me, what do you think I should write about? I would include love. I would include.
Yeah, if they came to you and said, Larry, I'm just in a rut. I'm tired. I don't want to. I'm pissed, but I don't want to just come out and just be a blowtorch. Mm-hmm. And you would say, talk about love, but the substance of love. Well,
that's one thing that's missing. We don't
soul. It could be considered, that.
We 70s, 60s. It's all about you love and dancing and feeling good, and not taking away from the fact that keeping the pulse on what ain't right in our country. Curtis Mayfield did an incredible job with that. Keep on pushing, telling the people to keep on pushing.
We the people that are darker than blue.
Right.
That's such a bad.
Listen to your leaders. He was talking about Listen to your leaders. He wasn't talking about President Johnson. He was talking about, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. He was talking about them cats, So
Muhammad Ali.
Right. So it's like, I would say,
Yeah, that's what someone just said. How do you channel injustice in a positive light? It's hard.
It is.
Because you have to have a story to tell.
You have a story to tell, but
somehow those cats, and I think it goes back to the camaraderie of the. You talked about everybody standing in the Booker T. Washington together.
Mm-hmm.
You all stayed together.
Mm-hmm.
And here you had people in these neighborhoods. George Duke, the late great George Duke, told me in one of our interviews. He said, if I cut up in the neighborhood,
you got chastised.
You'd be taken to the woodshed by the neighbors before you even got home.
That's right.
So even though people were suffering, maybe in the ghetto, I forget what George exactly said, but it was a loving place.
It was unity.
People were looking after each other. So how do you square that circle now when you have so many broken families and also just so many incarcerated people?
A formula. Just you asked me that.
There's no. You can just riff on that any way you want. There is no golden.
The formula for me is what we did in the '60s and in the '50s, late '50s, coming together, having more unity as a community.
How much do you think that a Me Too movement or a Black Lives Matter movement? How important is a musical component to those rallies? That's what I see. That's what I don't see at these rallies. I see a lot of people, and I see a lot of signs, and I see a lot of chanting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the Hugh Masekela's. I don't see the Herbie Hancocks or the idea of those cats played those gigs. Mike Clark was playing Black Panther rally. So
I was too.
Yes, you were.
Yeah, I played Black. I'm from Oakland. So
yes, you were. So how important is a musical? Not.
The music is part of the movement. When you look back at the '60s, the music was a part of the movement, man. That coming out of Oakland, that was a part of the movement. We pissed off. You hear it in the guitar. I'm pissed off. But it was, again, unity. Having unity and us coming together and not being so divided. We over here, we over there. We're innovators, man. Black folks are innovators. That's why, we do something, we create it, then we move on to something else. We're constantly moving.
The first medicines came out of the motherland, the first universities, so many of the instruments, and whether we like to see it or not, in all phases, black people are huge innovators.
You better believe it. So it's just holding on.
But you need to have hope, and you need to have, in this day and age, if you can't see the light, then there's no way to be an innovator. You get 1 out of 100. You get it's a much smaller minority, and then you get people like Kanye West who are just I'm not going to say that he's right or wrong, but it was that instant gratification that we talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of getting instantly successful, and you may or may not even be good at what you do, but all of a sudden, because money and the greed factor is so high now, that he is looked to in some way, shape, or form because he makes a lot of money.
Right.
It doesn't mean that his message is clear or that he's doing anything to give back to society.
Mm-hmm.
So, for people out there that are listening to this before we wrap, and their world is dark, and they and they have a hard time getting out of bed, and yet they have a lot of genius in their own way, and their true nature is love. What is your advice to them?
For me, I tell you, what I would say is...
And you look at the peeps now.
Be prayerful. For me, my strength comes from the Lord. And I don't make no excuses. So...
you talk about a time when the Lord intervened in your life and redirected you?
Mm-hmm. So... always, man, accepted Christ at a very early age, but that has been my foundation. Man, I mean, I pray when I go to a gig, man. I pray before I go to the gig. I ask God to give me the strength to play over 2,000% every night, and He allows me to do that. So my strength comes from the Lord, and being able to be loving and kind to my fellow man and those around me, be giving, reaching out, but staying focused in the Word. You know, because this, you know, you look at King Solomon, you know, he had everything. But still at the end, he realized, you know, all that meant nothing. All the money, that's, you know, you're going to get old.
There's no soul in it. There's no soul in it.
I mean, we need money.
No, definitely.
Stuff, we need food. You know, but, you know, there are other people that are in worse positions than we are. Do something for somebody. You know, you see somebody, you know, my dear friend was like a brother to me. He said, you know what I do sometimes, Larry? He said, man, I'll see somebody down and out, man. And what I'll do is I'll get by him and, man, I may try to lay $2 bill, $2 or $1 or $5 right down close to him and say, hey, man, is that yours? And the cat looks over and is like, that ain't mine, man. It must be yours. And he'll go on. Giving back, you know, being loving. Or stopping. You see somebody down out stopping. Have a word of prayer with them. And give them a little something. Help them along their way. Unity, man. We need unity.
Right.
More unity and more love for each other. I'm talking about everybody.
Right, we all are one human race, and we're more diverse than we've ever been before. So unity comes in. I actually had this tripped out dream about a movie 100 years in the future when East Indians, Chinese, and Middle Eastern people are going to be the politicians. It's not going to be the white power, right? It's going to be what we see now as unity. The question is, what is democracy going to look like with people that don't necessarily know? I mean, it's, you know, we're at a very fascinating time. Before I let you go, have you ever considered walking away from music?
I have a reoccurring thought, and it's been like that for years. Like, what if one day I wake up and I'm not doing this anymore, or I lose the incentive or the love of it, and it's always kind of like a frightening thing.
It's a paranoid dream, or
no, it's not a paranoid
you wake up
dream.
in
It's
sweat,
just a thought.
or
It's just a thought,
right? And it's a reoccurring thought.
A reoccurring thought. But the last thing I'll say before we wrap this up, what drives me? You asked me about what drives me.
Yeah.
What I can give to those around me. It's just like I say. Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. I can do anything through Christ, which strengthens me. And that's my scripture. I can do all things because that's where my strength comes from. You know.
A cat grounded deeply in his faith and searching for unity and trying to bring younger peeps together. Larry Vann, it's always a pleasure, man. And I'll see you at the Grammys with Oliver.
I look forward to it. Yeah, I told Oliver that, man. I said, man, I'm going to see you at the Grammys, man. He got something, man. He's sitting on something. That's a bad tune, man.
Well, you made it even badder, Larry. So much love to you. Can't wait to do it again, man.
Thank you, Jake. Peace.
Peace.